I'm Siboniso Nxumalo, a portfolio manager at the Old Mutual Investment Group. Over the last couple of weeks, we've received some of your stories and your questions on topics of savings, investing, money, big topic of crypto. Over the next couple of weeks, we will engage with those topics. So let's talk money. Let's talk investing. Let's talk how to build wealth. Let's talk financial freedom.
My name is Buchule. I'm 30 years old. I'm a CEO of a digital tax and accounting firm based here in Cape Town. So what do I expect to make from the sale of my assets? I think my biggest asset that I have is my company. And it's the biggest risk that I took. And ultimately, when you look at a company's sort of financial income, you look at money from the salary that I make from it, you look at money that I make from dividends from it, and maybe hopefully one day, the money I'll make from the sale of it. I think ultimately what we're trying to do is, for the next couple of years, 10, 20 years, is to grow that company to be a sizable portion, maybe listed on the JSE. So in terms of my current portfolio, I think for me it was, I had a tunnel vision before, only looking at my one big asset, trying to, putting everything I had and growing that. And I think, COVID was a real wake-up call for me, because I think you start realizing that actually you're not immune, you're not Superman, you're not gonna live forever. I think, or things can happen to you, or unexpected things can happen to the business, and that could make the business fail, And so one of the most important lessons I've learned in COVID, aside from obviously all the health benefits and all the health things that one needs to learn, is really the power of not putting all your eggs in one basket. And that's what I've really sort of done over the past couple of months or so, or a year actually, is expanding my asset portfolio, putting money away in other vehicles, like some savings accounts, unit trust accounts, obviously increasing my life cover, all those kind of things. Okay, well, if something were to happen to me or the business, would I still be secure? And I think that was a really big question that me and my partners in the business have been asking ourselves around how do we best diversify our current operations and the business, of course. Financial freedom, what it means to me, it means the ability to do the things I want to do when I want to do them without being limited because of the financial decisions I've made. I think it's okay if I don't have R1 billion to buy an aircraft. I don't think that's what financial freedom means to me, i.e. being able to buy a jet. I think for me it's about being comfortable, it's about being happy, being in a state where if I want to go out for dinner to make myself happy, to do that. And not have the external pressures, what I call month-end crunches, where you have too much month at the end of your money. Having considerable reserve that says, even if I don't earn a cent for the next 3 months or 4 months or 6 months, I'll still be okay. The longer that time frame is, then you're okay. Let's call it your okay period. In business, we call it rope or runway. Then that the better it is for you. I think that the more freedom you get. So is maybe freedom an absolute term, like am I free or not free? I think it's a moving target, and you always want more freedom, I guess. So financial freedom for me really means those two things: comfort and happiness.
Hi, Buchule. I really loved your story. I think the first thing I loved about your story is the idea of you building a business. Wow, I'm inspired. You've taken risks. You're out there. You're doing something. And I think, South Africa is in good hands if guys like you are out there doing something. Now, there's some things that I really want to touch on that you spoke about that I think you have a phenomenal grasp on. The first one is time periods. You were referring to 10 years, 20 years. I thought, wow, he gets it. He gets the importance of time and the power of time, especially when linked to your financial goals. Hold on to that. Buchule, hold on to that. That is probably the greatest asset that any young person has. They have time. Because time in the market is the biggest asset that you actually have. And you've got to capture it when you're young, and you've got to ride it out. And you spoke about it. And I thought, wow, he's got it. The second one, you talked about diversification. You talked about what COVID taught you about having all your eggs in one basket. And you talked about different risk parameters. I thought, wow, Buchule here can teach a lot of people about the principles on building great wealth. So let's touch on some of those. Let's talk about diversification, especially linked to the fact that you're an entrepreneur. Like you said, you took risk. When you were young, you went out on a venture. Congratulations, that's what we need. These are the things we need. We need to be cheering guys like you on. And in taking that risk, you view then your biggest asset or your biggest investment as your business. And it is. You've invested your time, you've invested your money, invested your heart and your passion in it. And I can see it. But Buchule, also, you've got to apply your mind to the sense that you've got every egg in this particular basket, which is your business. And so therefore, how do you deal with that and the future? And I think one of the things we always advise, especially to entrepreneurs in this particular instance, guys like you who've chasing a dream, is that at your age, you should be thinking about retirement already. You should be thinking, hey, how do I invest in a retirement annuity? Retirement annuity linked to some unit trust that's got the right risk parameter for a guy like you that's going to be doing the work for you in the background while you're busy building your particular business. And you ignore it, you leave it alone. You keep contributing month in, month out, and you let that grow over time. By the time you get to your 60s when you're supposed to retire, actually that would have worked out wonderfully for you. I think one of the things about being focused as an entrepreneur is that sometimes the entrepreneurs neglect the fact that, hey, I've got time and I can invest long term, I can invest in a retirement annuity. That is one thing I think we probably be good to start thinking through. The other side of it is actually, what are your financial goals? Now, you're a guy who does have goals, and you spoke about them. You said, well, you're 30 now, and you talked about how when you are 40 or so, your kids must be out of the house. So first of all, I'm alarmed. I'm like, what? How old are these kids? Why are these kids going to leave home at 40? This man is building a business. These kids are going nowhere. If that business is successful, they're staying right there. And so therefore, what do you need for these kids? Well, actually, you need to think. Actually, these kids need to go to university. Okay, so what are you doing with that? How are you investing and saving and helping your kids go to university? What assets can you be buying for that? And again, as a guy who works at an investment firm, again, we think unit trust. Go and have a look at unit trust, because your kids are relatively young. You've got a long period of time to invest. Unit trust, the right unit trust from a right reputable institution, investing in the right assets, could actually set up your kids for success without you doing too much. You set a contribution and you just watch that contribution grow over time. And then also it changes your risk parameters, because that now no longer has to come out of your business. You've already decided for that, and you're allowing the roll of time to help you along the way. But Buchule, I really don't have too much more to say to a guy like you. I'm inspired by you, and I think you've got the right principles. I think probably the one thing you must be thinking about is, like I said, think about retirement, because entrepreneurs generally don't think too much about that, and then think about where your kids are going to be, the ones that you are hoping will be out of the house at 40. And I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that's unlikely to happen. I'm 40 now. My kids are firmly at home. They don't want to pay for anything. But that's okay. Or at least I pretend it's okay. Thank you, my man. I'm inspired by you. Cheers.